Bitcoin is trying to form a local top in the current price region. We've seen over the last few days some selling pressure. Question is this already the top in the wave 2 that we talked about after this July rally? We expect another sell-off, but is this already the main sell-off or not? We want to talk about this in this video. And we don't do this very often, but I will give you some insights about Bitcoin dominance, the Elliott Wave count, and what it could mean for altcoins. Before we do that, we'll start here on the daily time frame and take a look at the Bitcoin chart as it is. Overall, I think we can keep this fairly short and sweet here. I believe that Bitcoin is close to a bear market low, which means, we might have a few more months of selling pressure ahead of us, but most of the selling is likely done. And I think the last move down will not be as straightforward as many people think. Just an example, it will be difficult. So a few ideas that I have. So first of all, this wave 2 here can still extend potentially into August. So people who expect a direct sell-off to the downside could be surprised if the market spends a little bit more time in this range. But overall, none of that really changes our forecast or so. The wave structure here hasn't changed all year. The idea was that the market is in an ABC structure to the downside and that we started the third phase of the bear market a while ago. That was in May with the May top. The idea was we started the C wave decline. That's still the idea. Whether the market sells off directly or goes a little higher into resistance is something only the market will decide, but the parameters are crystal clear. For this white scenario, which is the directly bearish variation here of the wave count, to remain plausible, we should not see a decisive break above $76,600. If Bitcoin really breaks above this level, it would mean that something different is going on. Yeah, some of the more bullish scenarios we talked about in previous updates, like, for example, a larger B wave, or maybe even a bear market low is in, but I do not have any evidence for it, okay? So as long as this resistance area is being respected, especially here with the additional resistances like the trend line, the 200-day moving average, the pressure remains down, okay? But of course, the market can rally into resistance again. You know, you can't predict that. I can tell you that Bitcoin has really done the minimum it needs to do in this bounce. I think it can go higher. It would be normal for Bitcoin, even in a bear market, to rally into August and then possibly to form a top in the first or second week of August. That's normal, but August and September are normally bearish months in bear markets, whereas July is normally bullish. And so, but yeah, again, you know, that could happen. So, that could happen. So people might be surprised if the price pushes back into resistance. It could also happen that Bitcoin just forms a marginally lower low and then tries to recover. That's because this is an important support level around 56.5K. It is, if I zoom out here, the 38.2 retracement and actually the very first main support level here on the chart. So it might take a while until we break through. From an Elliott Wave point of view, that could mean once we have a top, the initial sell-off will be another wave 1. Then we could get a wave 2, and only then we get the sell-off, right? So there are still a few ways for Bitcoin to give us here some corrective bounce moves and produce bear traps. Essentially, when people think, oh, wow, we now finally break through. Yeah, when this low breaks, that might simply be a stop hunt and then another recovery, and only then we get the breakdown, okay? So these are some of the thoughts I have. By the way, yesterday I shared with you also the Wyckoff accumulation pattern that's playing out here. So that might be something for you to take into account as well. But the overall idea is Elliott Wave here is the leading model. The white scenario is the leading scenario for now. The resistances are very clear. The next support is 56.5K. And at this stage, the expectation would be for the market to still form at least another low here in the white scenario, maybe even 2. And then form a low towards the end of the year. Okay, now let's take a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. Before we do that, quick reminder, you can also follow us on X for additional updates, charts, news, and much more. Also, I assume a lot of you guys are interested in Bitcoin. It is obviously the most popular asset here on the channel, and a lot of you are interested in cycle overviews as well. I share a lot of these on X, for example, and then you get a lot of insights about, the cycle runs, drawdowns, how the cycle is behaving, and so on, plus some exclusive videos as well. But if you guys are interested in that, you can find all that information here on X. That's normally not shared really on YouTube, so you get a lot of additional analysis here. And it's the More Crypto Online channel. Make sure you follow the one with the golden check mark. Now let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. And I want to start with the higher time frame overview. A lot of you asked me to talk about Bitcoin dominance, and there are a lot of charts that are going around that suggest that Bitcoin dominance could soon see the next decline, and that the altcoins are going to have a really good time. Honestly, I think that's the case. However, I also think that altcoins will not reach all-time highs, or at least some of them will, but most of them won't. I believe anyway, as you know, that a lot of the altcoins will die. I believe that 99% of them will not recover. Yeah, they might give us a bounce here and there, but they will probably not reach new all-time highs. And over time, the number of altcoins will just shrink. Okay, that's just important to highlight. But I still believe there will be new altcoins, there will be new hypes, there will be many new coins that replace the old ones. And I also think that some of the older, more established ones will do well, but it really depends on the chart itself. We have to take into account the individual charts to say, okay, this might go to all-time highs, this might not. This is a general overview, but I believe as well that once the new Bitcoin bull market starts, which, as we just talked about, could be end of the year, this range here might break to the downside. So this is the wave count. I've shown it to you a lot of times, but we don't take a look at it so frequently because Bitcoin dominance hasn't really moved since the low last year. So around a year ago in September, August, a low formed. That's crazy how fast the time is running. That was here around 57%. And as you can see, we have something like a range, like a triangle here. And we could even interpret this from an Elliott Wave point of view as an Elliott Wave triangle. Now, I don't want to fake precision here because this is a range chart. It's a ratio chart. Elliott Wave doesn't really apply here so well. We mainly use Elliott Wave to communicate, because the language, right? It's a language to communicate what the expectations are. And the idea is this was an A wave low. What we might be dealing with right now is a B wave. And then there could eventually be at some point a C wave decline. The problem with a triangle is it might also break up. So, but at the moment, we don't even have that. We don't have an answer about that. And also, that's not the main question. The main question is, in which direction could this triangle extend? And as you can see, the triangle would look best with another decline. And this here could be our next altcoin season that might play out. But first of all, the current range needs to develop a little bit further. And you see that at the moment, I interpret this decline that started in June 2025, where Bitcoin dominance topped around 66%. I interpret this as the D wave of the triangle, and the D wave of a triangle is an ABC structure. And we might now be working on the B wave. And the B wave itself, funny enough, or not, it's frustrating, could be a triangle as well, which explains this sideways action that we're dealing with right now. But once the range breaks, that means at the very least a break below 57.9%. Better, 57% is required to confirm the next leg down. And from an Elliott Wave point of view, that would be our C wave decline, which could possibly even take us into the 50% region, the low 50% region. And you might see that as an altcoin season. So that's very important. And looking at the microstructure, and this is not reliable at all, but looking at the microstructure for Bitcoin dominance, you see that this here is our D wave decline. It might take us, as I said, into the low 50, maybe even high 40% region. And what we're dealing with right now are two relevant swing lows here. I already mentioned it, around about 57%. And then we've got the 54.7% level as next swing low as well. In the very short term, it's even here the 57.8% level. These are the next levels that need to be broken. But I think the most relevant one is probably the 57% level. Once that one is broken, that is the level we haven't been below that since September last year. That should then send us, first of all, towards 55, possibly 52%, and maybe even 48%. And again, that's the range that many people want to see broken to the downside. I think it's realistic, but it might not be until Bitcoin actually has formed the bear market low. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Now, in the meantime, it might be, and this is unfortunately the complexity of the B wave here, that either we topped in the B wave and we go down directly. I don't necessarily believe that. Or that we're forming here much more complex sideways consolidation in this B wave before selling off, possibly as a triangle. I just mentioned that. That's not very clear yet, but the overall idea is we are ranging a little bit more before the next decline starts. What this specifically allows for is another move up into resistance, simply because there's a lot of noise happening here. Yeah, but you see at the moment Bitcoin dominance is moving in quite a tight range, which means there isn't much going on with altcoins, specifically here between the 57.9% level and the last swing highs around 61.5%. So that should give you a good overview of Bitcoin dominance. I suggest that we now take a look at the microstructures. And here on the smaller time frame, I still see two pathways that the market could take for higher prices. You see already the one that we discussed here yesterday, which is that we had a 5-wave advance from the low in July. We talked about that throughout July already. And then this here is a so-called flat correction where we have an A wave down, an overshooting B wave, and a C wave decline could actually now be unfolding. That is one of the scenarios that I'm tracking here. And then support is between $59,369 and $62,533. So if really this C wave decline is unfolding, we should reach in 5 waves this orange support area. I think there could be some additional structural support also around $62,530. This is where the swing low formed on the 17th of July. And as first resistance, I would use this yellow trend line, which served as support and might now be flipped as resistance now that the market broke below this first trend line. And it is, to me, not entirely clear yet whether we are already in the internal third wave down of that C wave, or we are only in the late stages of the wave 1 of C, and we could get a wave 2 bounce. But either way, the short-term pressure seems down. And another and then, once this B wave pullback is complete as a so-called flat correction, the C wave advance might start later and could take the market towards that 69 to 72K region, which I mentioned above as possible resistance. And again, quick reminder, this area between 69 and 72K is the area where we have multiple different resistances, like a trend line that I showed you on the higher time frame, the 61.8 retracement, the 200-day moving average, and so on. Another scenario would be a more bullish variation. If really a more substantial low formed already, then this A wave up could also be a wave 1. I will mark that with a question mark here in the orange count, and the pullback might be a wave 2. In the short term, we won't be able to distinguish between the white and the orange count. It will depend on the rally afterwards. But the white count, in which we're currently in a corrective rally, well, that might be the leading scenario until, we see further evidence of a more bullish scenario. But for now, I think there's still a chance for another rally into resistance. It will depend on a positive reaction to this support area, which is between 59,369 and 62,533. At the moment, the market is hovering just above the last swing low here, so very short-term support is 63,752. Yeah, not too much more to say. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in additional updates, I recommend that you check out our membership as well. As a member, you can get access to our Discord feed. You can ask questions on Discord. You can get access to my live charts. You can get access to long-term charts as well. You can get access to our terminal with more than 70 tools and indicators, and our academy, which is part of the terminal. So feel free to check it out. Thanks so much. I put the link into the comment section, by the way, with a 50% discount for your first month. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.